I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring your ass.
These guys survived the David Kahn era of Timberwolves basketball and live to tell about it. It's Flagrant Howls.
We got the sports dad, Judd Zulgad, Phil Mackey here. It's Flagrant Howls, a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. And we have a summer league roster to look at, Judd. A Vegas summer league roster. But first, Finch Home Solutions. No relation. By the way, Chris Finch was he was having a good weekend.
Twins game,
doing his thing. Probably on a boat somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it looks like the leg is good.
It's he's got a little over the knee wrap or something, a brace of some kind.
Not too bad, right?
But yes, he's walking around doing his thing.
Yes, the thing about Chris Finch and our friends at Finch Home Solutions, run by our buddy Cody Finch, is that what you're talking about is upper echelon. In Chris Finch's case, that means coaching basketball. In Cody's case, that means a team of people who can take care of any electrical needs in your home, taking those vans out, coming to your house, fast, efficient, courteous. And we're talking big projects. We're talking let's say that you want a 2-pronged outlet, switch to a 3-pronged one in your old house. Finch can do that. Let's say that you're talking about hot tub installation or you're redoing your kitchen. A lot of electrical needs there. Guess what? Finch can do that as well. It's as simple as this. Give them a call, 612-357-2604, or go to their website, finchhomesolutions.com. finchhomesolutions.com. They are your number one draft choice for any electrical needs in your home or business.
Amen. Amen. So, yeah, the Wolves Summer League roster is complete, and we thought it'd be fun just to highlight some of the interesting players to watch here. So four games announced starting, I think, Friday. Yeah, July 12th.
Yeah, practicing this week at Mayo Clinic Square and then going out to Vegas.
Yep. I was just in Vegas for a few days over 4th of July, and I can confirm it's very hot, and it's very fun. A lot of things to do in Las Vegas. I'm not sure if you knew that, Judd.
Air conditioning for sports dad. That's what he likes.
It was I think it was a record high, 118 degrees yesterday. I wasn't there.
It's a dry heat. It's no problem.
I will say I'd rather have, 118's pushing it, but I'd rather have 107 or 110 and no humidity than some of the stuff that gets thrown at us here in the humid parts. To me, it's more bearable than 92 degrees and 88% humidity with mosquitoes flying around your head. But
give me air conditioning, okay? Give me a couch, a TV, a beer, and air, and it can be whatever it wants outside.
Well, I think they have air conditioning at the Thomas and Mack Center and the Cox Pavilion, which is where these summer league games are going to be. So write these down, okay? If you're looking to watch some fun young players, Rob Dillingham is going to be out there. We'll go over some of these players. But Friday, 4 o'clock Central Time, ESPN2. And then that's against New Orleans. Then Sunday against the Pacers Summer League team at 4:30 NBA TV. And then it's Tuesday, Philadelphia, 7 p.m. Central Time, ESPN2. And then Thursday, I guess, would be the last one scheduled against Houston, 10 p.m. Central Time. That'll be a late night one on ESPN, though. It'll be on the mothership. So I got a list. They've got 14 or I think it's 16 players on their Summer League team.
Yes.
But let's just fly through the most interesting ones to watch. Starting with the obvious, Rob Dillingham is the player that they traded up from. He's the Kentucky guard, 8th overall pick. They made a huge move on draft night. And I think what we're watching for there is what does he look like offensively against professional basketball players, against other young, talented guys? What does he look like as a passer? I think as a defender is going to be a work in progress for him, just size-wise and everything.
Sure.
But does he show flashes of some of the other Kentucky guards that have come out the last 10 years? The Tyrese Maxeys, the Devin Bookers, Jamal Murrays, and that bin of players that have taken the NBA by storm. But I think Rob Dillingham is going to be the main attraction on this roster. I think that's fair to say.
I agree completely. Yeah, and you know what? So I think the thing, too, is that this also allows players to get involved in their new team's culture. It's not the same players, clearly, but you can set a base here and an expectation as well. So, yeah, I think Dillingham's going to be the guy that fans are most curious to see. Now, I would urge you, if he does not play great, don't panic too much, and that's coming from me. I love to panic. But yeah, I think among the marquee guys, now you're probably going to get into some names, though. I think my biggest curiosity is this: some of the guys that are coming back who might actually start playing as well, right?
Yes. And I'll give you one. We'll get to him in a few minutes, but they just added someone that I think could be a major sleeper and a guy that could be an NBA prospect to keep an eye on. Okay. A guy that we've never talked about on this show before. Ooh. But yeah, Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr. was the other first round pick. So I think just to stop on him for a second, he's 24 years old, and there's some guy, I mean, he's like the third oldest guy, I think, on the Summer League roster. There's some other guys who are 24, 25, but it's a lot of 19, 20, 21-year-old guys on your team and opponents. So I think just size-wise, experience, age, Terrence Shannon Jr. should be able to get his shots off and should be able to play some defense. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him being kind of an alpha out there. And something like the Leonard Millers, the Josh Minotts, like these guys that are going to be out there for a second or third year. Right. They are several years younger than Terrence Shannon Jr. So he's
as well, right?
Anthony Edwards?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a year younger than Terrence Shannon.
A year younger, yes. Yeah, no, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So there's those are the two first round picks. I think Jalen Clark is next on my list because he's been a little bit forgotten in this mix of young players. He's still just 22 years old, second round pick from a year ago. The note just came out a couple days ago from the Timberwolves. He is 100% cleared from that Achilles tendon tear at the end of his last year at UCLA. Full 5-on-5 practices. He's cleared for full Vegas Summer League games. He was the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year in college basketball 2 years ago at UCLA. 6'4". I'm curious to see what his offense looks like because he's not much of I think he shot like 32% his last year at UCLA. But we're talking high energy, big time defender. I'm getting some Josh Okogie vibes, and if you can add a jump shot into that mix and just play high energy, good defense,
right?
That's what does his offense look like? And how does he bounce back physically from a devastating injury? Those are the biggest questions.
Right. Yeah, and he has been because of his circumstances completely forgotten, right?
Yeah, unless you're a flagrant Hollis hardcore.
You talked about him a bit months ago, but yeah, this is one too where because it felt like with Okogie, they could never add that jump shot. Like they tried, and the kid worked his ass off. And defensively, you're right, he was fantastic. But yeah, can you hone this? Because if you can, and I'm not saying that if he develops a good jump shot, it has to be perfect. But if you think about, certain defensive situations, right? If a player can be put in there and get a stop, that's one where you can make yourself a lot for basically having a role, but you probably do need to have some semblance of an offensive game. It might not be dominant, it might not be great, but at least it's a semblance of that.
And think about where this roster is headed the next 5 to 6 years. Anthony Edwards is one of the most ball dominant, just all around great players in the league.
Yep.
It's way too early to say anything like that about Rob Dillingham, but you moved up to draft him to be a secondary scorer the next 5-6 years. Perfect world, he becomes an 18, 20 points per game guy, offensive microwave scorer. Right now, Karl-Anthony Towns is still in his prime. He's under contract. I don't know that he's going to play out the entirety of that contract, but right now, you got this unicorn offensive 7-footer. So you've got these ball dominant players. The rest of the roster is begging for 3-and-D guys. And by the way, Jaden McDaniels has another layer of offense that we've talked about too. So if you're one of these other guys, can you play defense? Can you shoot threes? And then there's other ways you can impact too. So this team could use some extra rebounding here and there. So that's something to watch out for. But I would just say like Jalen Clark, Josh Minott, who we'll talk about here in a second, Terrence Shannon Jr., don't need 20 points from you. Just need defense and threes in the corner and maybe some other stuff here and there. Maybe a slash and a rebound once in a while.
And if you can get a role too, it's even more imperative and great for this team because of being over the second apron, right? Because you're cheap as a young player. So if you don't have to go out and sign veterans who aren't, who are more expensive, if you can carve yourself out a valuable niche on a rookie contract, think about that as well, because this team needs that. Like that's going to be the difference of how do you keep your expenses now when you're paying some top players, how do you keep them reasonable?
Yeah. This team has a solidified, I would say 8.5 man rotation with Joe Ingles sort of, he's 37.
Joe's my guy.
By the way, this is the first episode we've done since the Joe Ingles
my guy.
signing. Boy, we manifested that thing on Flagrant House, didn't we? Kyle was stumping for it too.
Was he?
On the episode last week.
I loved when I saw it.
And hopefully he's still 70% of the player that he was the last time he played with Rudy, but just hit some threes, 12, 15 minutes a game, just go be Joe Ingles. Yeah.
Exactly right. You're not asking for a ton.
So outside of that, they're going to need another couple players to step in, and obviously Dillingham's going to have something to say about that, and Terrence Shannon Jr., but I think Finch would love to play 9 or 10 guys in the regular season. He doesn't want to play a 7.5, 8-man rotation in the.
And guys get hurt.
Yep. So guys got to step up. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, Josh Minott, still only 21 years old. Energy, rebounding, transition, cutting, all these, he's just kind of a ball of energy when he's on the court. You saw it in garbage time for however many games he played during the regular season too. Shooting is the biggest question for him, so he's going to get shots off. He's going to be one of the alphas on this summer league team. What does his offense look like? It can't just be frenetic energy without making shots. Right. And the other thing too is size and position. He's 6'8", but he's a lean, slender 6'8". Is he, can he guard fours? I don't know. Is he offensive enough to play wing? I guess we'll have to see. But he only played 4 G League games last year because he was mostly with the Wolves on the bench as just a traveling member of their entourage. So, but in those 4 G League games, per 36 minutes, 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. So he's one to watch. And then Leonard Miller is probably the most intriguing guy because they drafted him and there was a lot of buzz that he might have been a fringe lottery caliber player a year and a half ago. They get him in the second round. He's played parts of 2 years in the G League. Last year, so he makes a huge jump, 53% from the field, 93% from the free throw line in the G League, which for a 6'10" lefty, 93% from the free throw line, that's a good sign that your shot mechanics are coming around.
Yep.
And then his 3-point percentage improved from 27% his first year in the G League to 33%. His fouls were cut in half. So just a lot of good movement. The first year of the G League was pre-draft. Then he gets into the Wolves development system and you see some strides forward. And I can confirm, being at enough Wolves pre-games, regular season and postseason, the Wolves development coaches, very hands-on with Leonard Miller. Very hands-on, a lot of shooting, a lot of mechanic stuff, but he's a 6'10" athletic dude with range, very Chris Bosh-esque in the way he profiles if he can reach his peak potential. But he's still only 20 years old, and he's probably besides Dillingham, probably the guy with the most upside to keep an eye on this summer league team.
It'll be interesting to watch too, from the sense that it feels like the Wolves have done, and it's been increasing. I think they've done a really good job of developing what in baseball you call prospects. There's a feeder system that feels far more complete than it was at one time. And I'll go back to what I said before. I think that's incredibly important because you are going to have to find young contributors based on salary. You're going to have to. Mm-hmm. That's now you. It's not just that you don't want to spend more. You're restricted now. If you look at what the league does as far as allowing only certain signings, they take away certain advantages that if you're below that apron that you have. There's a lot of things, and guys do get hurt. So there's a lot of reason to like the fact that the Wolves development appears to be on the right track.
Yes. And they have, look at and I'll get to a couple other names here too, but including maybe my favorite guy to keep an eye on, that I've been teasing now for 15 minutes. But if you look at their roster, it's mostly really young guys, like 25 and under, all the way down to 19. For all the fear mongering 2 years ago about how the Gobert trade was an all-in move, and now how are you going to get young players to replenish the cupboard? It's like, well, So Gobert's 31. Conley is a dinosaur, but still very effective. And his locker is right next to Dillingham's in the Wolves practice facility, which is something interesting. Soak it in, Dillingham. Dilly. Towns is 28, 29, whatever he is.
Yep.
Everybody else, Ingles is 37, but
Ingles is
Jaden,
my age, dude. Yep.
He looks like he's pushing 60.
Yeah, he does.
Everybody else, Jaden, who I saw Jaden, by the way, walking around. My wife and I went to the Taste of Minnesota. Food trucks, music.
Oh, yeah.
Him and his gal were just
Wallflowers on Saturday.
Yeah, dude. They were just wandering around the Taste of Minnesota, completely unbothered.
He's one of us.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad they didn't get bugged.
Jaden, Ant, Nas, Nikhil, Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr., Leonard Miller, Josh Minott, Luka Garza, Jalen Clark. That's 10 dudes.
So
all
Towns
25 and under.
Towns is old on this team.
On this team, yeah. It's crazy. Daishan Nix, or Daishan, I should pronounce it correctly. Daishan Nix is on the Summer League team, 22 years old. Now, people wondering, who's that guy? Do you remember on the Wolves bench when somebody would do something crazy on the court, like Anthony Edwards would posterize, a Utah Jazz player, whatever, and then like everybody would do the point, the him point.
Yep.
And people wondered, like, who's the crazy Hawaiian shirt afro guy on the bench? That's Daishan Nix. And he was on their Summer League team last year, a handful of G League games last year too. So he's someone to keep an eye on. Can he shoot at a consistent level?
Sure.
But I want to give you my favorite potential under-the-radar Summer League prospect that no one's talking about yet, but they might be talking about him in a week from now. Presented by Dennis Kirk. Dennis Kirk is here for riding season. DennisKirk.com to check out over 185,000 parts, apparel, and accessories for motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, dirt bikes, snowmobiles, if you're looking ahead to basketball season. Same-day shipping on orders placed before 8 p.m. Central Time, and free shipping on all orders over $89. DennisKirk.com. They also have new lifetime returns policy. So, like, if you buy something and it's still like new and they still carry the product, you can return it even 10 years later. So, DennisKirk.com is here for all of you, all you Ragnars out there who like to ride. Let me introduce you, Judd, to a man, a 22-year-old guard named Nadir Hifi. I think that's how you pronounce it. Nadir Hifi? Nadir Hifi? Nadir Hifi.
He's your guy.
I've only seen his name in print and seen some highlights where they don't say his name.
Okay.
So he was just he was cut as a 22-year-old. He was cut from the French Olympic team. So he was with the French national team.
Lucky him. Yeah.
With Rudy Gobert, by the way.
Yep.
And so he will now play Summer League with the Timberwolves. He was a major breakout player in the top French league last year and in Euro Cup. 17 points a game, almost 40% from three-point range on 6 attempts per game, by the way. So a high-volume three-point shooter. His Paris team just won the Euro Cup tournament 3 months ago. And he was one of the leading scorers and shot takers on that team as a 22-year-old. Or 21, going to turn 22. And like I said, he has experience playing with Rudy Gobert on the French national team. So he's going to come in and he's made a huge jump internationally in the last year. He went undrafted a couple years ago. But it's a guy with Rudy Gobert experience, and it's a guy that comes in as a sniper three-point shooter, a lefty shooter, by the way. So keep an eye on him. It's Nadir, Nadir Hifi, Hifi.
Sounds like a hockey player more than a basketball player. That's interesting. Okay.
Just throwing him out there. Yep. There's going to be a lot of Rob Dillingham, a lot of Terrence Shannon Jr., Josh Minott, but they may have stumbled into something here, and we'll get to watch starting Friday.
I'm thinking about your point about the Gobert trade, and here's one thing that's occurred to me about this league in particular, because their draft is only 2 rounds, right? And the first round is as often as arbitrary as a first round in sports. Like it's probably second to baseball. Hockey's probably 2, and then football is 1 as far as importance of first round. But it feels like there's a way to find basketball players now that doesn't necessarily funnel through the draft, don't you think?
I mean, that's a good question. I'd have to see.
Like if it's a top 5 first round pick, yes. But like, let's say the Wolves are now just good for a prolonged time. So you're always drafting when you do have picks late. Feels like that you can hit on a pick in the second round if you care about it, and some teams do. Or you can sign a guy that doesn't get drafted, and like
Nas Reed.
Yeah, a lot of the list that you just ran through, if the NBA draft went deeper, it feels like it would be a problem, because then it's like you got to take but I don't know that NBA first round picks, unless they are, lottery and or higher, like top 5, I don't know that they're as important as we get hung up on, in part because we're a football culture and football has 7 rounds, and those draft picks are important.
I would say 2 things. Number 1, you're right. You can find absolute high-end talent in the second round, like Bronny James. I mean, what a steal for the Lakers. I don't know if you've seen some of the things coming out.
I have, and it's so unfair to this kid.
Well, I mean, but these media companies aren't helping. There was like graphics, was it ESPN or somebody put out, it was like they put 21 minutes.
Yeah.
But they tried to make it look like 21 points.
But this poor kid, I mean, why his old man wants him on his it's just the whole thing.
The whole thing's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, very weird.
Anyway, but like I think like there's a lot of internationally too. I mean, look at how many French players went in the first round. There's just more really good high-end basketball players in the world than there were 25 or 30 years ago.
Easily. And
you could even argue that there's certain parts of, especially Europe and other parts of the world, where the development pipelines are just better than the American AAU system or the college system, which is now, I mean, think about now, like with NIL, these guys, the guys that aren't one and done, but maybe they like jump from one college to the next and maybe a third college.
Yeah. And
they're not getting used to playing with a certain system, or they're just bouncing around for individual numbers in some cases. So,
right.
But there's, like the NBA draft has been 2 rounds for a long time, but the amount of talent available in the world is greater than it was 25 or 30 years ago. Therefore, you have a better chance of finding someone that might stick in your rotation in the second round, or even undrafted like the Wolves did with Nas Reed.
Right. And I don't think that Conley is trading first round picks because he's impatient or dumb. Like there are definitely teams that don't care about first round picks, or that don't go about the process in the correct way. I don't think Conley is in that bin. And so, like, I think when teams trade picks, you probably have to take a step back and say, okay, 1, does this person have any clue what they're doing? Which I think Tim Conley does. And 2, is there a reason why they're willing to trade those picks?
Well, and also, like, to add to that, because again, this goes back to the fear mongering from the Gobert trade. No, they don't have any first round picks.
And it's the Herschel Walker thing, which is a totally Mike Lynn had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah, and like it's a different sport altogether. Like it's apples to oranges in almost every possible way. But
years.
People acted like the Wolves traded consecutive year first round picks for like 8 years or something. First of all, you can't trade consecutive year first round picks.
Right.
So they had first round picks in their bag every other year. But if you could say to me, hey, you already have Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, a couple other interesting young players, Nas Reed. This is 2 years ago. And now you're going to add Rudy Gobert, but you're still going to keep every other year's first-round pick for ammo to either draft young players or to do whatever you want with. Say, that sounds great. So I'm going to be a 50-win team who goes deep in the playoffs, and I still get some first-round picks. I wouldn't want all those first-round picks now, because like I have 10 players under the age of 26 years old on my roster. And that's part of the reason, by the way, why they kept trading out of the second round, because they're like, what are we going to do with another second round pick?
Selling those picks. Yeah, no, I agree completely.
So anyways, the moral of this podcast is some really interesting players to watch in Summer League, including my guy, Nadir Hifi from the French Olympic team. He just got cut. And plenty of young talent on this team. We'll do more on Joe Ingles this week. I think we should do more of just like, what does this overall rotation look like now that officially Kyle Anderson, Monte Morris, and Jordan McLaughlin are gone from the team?
Yep.
And then Anthony Edwards basically saying that I'm the man on this Team USA squad. Everything, and he said it with a smile, but everybody else needs to fall in line behind me.
He's got some quotes that are just absolutely fantastic about himself, about Durant. There's some great stuff. If nothing else, I think Ant is going to come away from this as a complete national media darling.
Yeah. And the way, like, when you read some of these quotes,
they're hilarious. He's not.
But it also is like, wow, that guy's really cocky. But the way he kind of smiles when he says it, he means it, but he's also.
Well, he also deflects too, though. Like he's got it down.
Yeah.
I give him a lot of credit.
It's great. So tons of Wolf stuff this week. Kyle's going to jump on tomorrow for his episode of Flagrant House here. Nice. For the sports dad, Judd, I'm Phil Mackey, and this is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.